not that it's much of a surprise, but it's official now. Kyle Larson will return to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in May of 2025 to attempt the double once again. Of course, he attempted it this year. Of course, the majority of the questions in this press conference had to do with the rain that ultimately postponed or delayed. It delayed the Indianapolis 500, and Larson couldn't get to Charlotte on time, missed the Coca Cola 600, and the double was ruined. Now, before we go more into that, tonight, in about, well, 2 hours from the time of filming this, it's like a mini double of the channel. Nowhere close to what Larson's attempting. But anyways, we will do the Monday after. Yes, I know it's a Tuesday. We keep it the Monday after purely for name consistency. But tonight we will go live, talk about the races at Atlanta this past weekend. So make sure to tune into that. And as I said, we're back in the normal place. Obviously, I'm home from the last 2 race weekends. So we'll have the normal setup this week. I know last week was a little bit weird. But we're back this week. Anyways, Kyle Larson in the Indianapolis 500. As I already said last year, so much hype, so much excitement. Larson had speed. He qualified 5th, made it to the Fast 6. I mean, he was extremely competitive, ran in the top 10 for the majority of the race until he got a speeding penalty. Ended up finishing 18th on the day at Indianapolis before flying to Charlotte. And as soon as he landed, they were going to get him in the car. And yes, he didn't start the race. Yes, he wasn't going to get the 1100, which was disappointing, but it looked like he was going to get to drive both cars on that Sunday. Then it rained in Charlotte. The same storm that was in Indianapolis went all the way to Charlotte to follow Kyle Larson and rain on him twice in 2 completely different places. Well, now, 2025, Kyle Larson will have his chance once again. Same scenario, same setup. Indianapolis Motor Speedway with a mixture of Aero McLaren and Hendrick Motorsports. Of course, this past year racing with Aero McLaren, I think it was also funded by Rick Hendrick and HendrickCars.com. That was a big help. Obviously, you need sponsorship to get these things going. But Kyle Larson, one of the most talented drivers in the world. As for who is the most talented, that's a debate for another day, obviously. But Kyle Larson, as I said, he looked so competitive that weekend, or really the couple of weeks leading up to the Indy 500. And there was so much hype, excitement, but the weather ultimately ruined it in a sense. And next year, of course, during all the press conferences, they were asking, well, what if this happens again? What if it rains in Indy again? Like, what are you going to do? Well, Rick Hendrick said that the 600 was the priority. He said that if Kyle Larson's in the car or the race gets postponed, they will go to Charlotte. The 600 is the priority. Now, there's questions as to why it's shifted. And NASCAR gave Larson a playoff waiver. They waited. They took their sweet time to do it. But they ended up giving him a playoff waiver. And ultimately, I believe they'd give it to him again unless they specifically told Rick Hendrick otherwise, unless they told him, hey, you try to pull that again, we're not going to give him a waiver, despite what he's done. Of course, Kyle Larson's won 4 races this year. He's made the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. He almost won the regular season championship. In fact, I think maybe that's a factor, another factor, because Larson lost the regular season championship by 1 whole point. And it was on his list of potential reasons that you could look at in terms of making the playoff or winning the regular season championship.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to look back at that, but as well as everybody. I mean, I'm sure Reddick has a handful that he feels has gotten away. But, yeah, I mean, Iowa, Michigan, Chicago, I mean, that's just a few. Charlotte, if I could have just gotten a race there.
Now, once again, as Larson has said multiple times, you could really go and point at multiple moments. Iowa, Michigan, Chicago. All he needed was 1 more point, and he wins the regular season championship. 1 more point. You don't even have to look at the wrecks. You don't even have to look at Charlotte. You could go to a race where he finished 14th if he just finishes 13th. Regular season champion. They ended up still winning the regular season championship in the owner's points, which helps, and the owner's points is where you get the money. But surely that plays a factor, maybe, but Steve Phelps, NASCAR, one of NASCAR's higher-ups, he was there. So when they asked Rick Hendrick, they asked him very specifically, they said, hey, what if Kyle's leading? What if, like, it's near the end of the race, he's leading, but he has to leave in the next 10 minutes to get to Charlotte on time for the 600? And he said, hey, Steve Phelps, you got an answer for me? And everyone kind of laughed, so I don't know what Steve Phelps did, but it was an interesting question. But Rick Hendrick, once again, re-emphasized that the 600 was the priority. If there's a situation where they're going to be late to Charlotte, Kyle Larson's going to get pulled out of the car or they're going to leave. Tony Kanaan was at this press conference. He has won the Indianapolis 500, won it back in 2013. He is the standby driver. He is the backup reserve, the understudy, whatever you want to call him. Jeff Gordon and Zach Brown, who is the CEO of McLaren Racing, which also includes Arrow McLaren, obviously, in the IndyCar side of things. They were there as well talking to the media about this announcement. Once again, Kyle Larson attempting to do the double, attempting the Hendrick 1,100 miles. They said they had unfinished business to get done, which obviously, do I really need to explain it more? Because they didn't get the 1,100 last year. It's a very difficult feat. It's a very difficult task to get done in any condition. But when the weather doesn't cooperate, it makes it extra difficult. So the majority of the questions were about that. The majority of the answers. At one point, Larson even said, he didn't say like angrily, he just kind of said, yeah, man, so many questions about the rain. Like, can we please stop? But for real though, it's an exciting opportunity. It's great for NASCAR, great for IndyCar. There were so many eyes on Larson this year, not just because he was in the race, but because he had speed. He looked good. He looked somewhat competitive. Now, is he going to win it next year? I don't know. Probably not. It's only his second time in an IndyCar, but there's a chance. There's always a chance. He's in a competitive car. He's an extremely, as I said, one of the most talented in the world in terms of his driving capability. So maybe he can get it done. But ultimately, I think the biggest thing that hurt him this year was he doesn't have all that race experience. We saw a couple bad restarts, entry to pit road, the pit road penalty. But now that he's got some experience under his belt, he knows how fast these cars are. He knows how to drive them a little bit more. Maybe he could go out and win. I wouldn't rule it out, but we'll see when it comes time in May of 2025. I looked up the weather forecast today. It looks good. It's supposed to be sunny on May 25th, 2025. It's only Tuesday, September 10th of 2024, so we got quite a bit of time for that forecast to change, but anyways, I'm tired of talking about the weather now. But Kyle Larson will be attempting the double for the second time in his career, once again with Arrow McLaren, with Hendrick Motorsports. As for the paint schemes, they might switch it up. I think Rick Hendrick said they're for sure switching up the 5 car. Don't remember what they said about the 17, but once those paint schemes come out, I'll let you know about it. But Kyle Larson, the double, 2025. Hopefully it goes better this time. Would love to see him complete it. It's only happened once with Tony Stewart. But it would be a fun story, a cool story. So let me know what your thoughts are in the comments, and I will see you guys for the Monday after here in hour and a half, hour 20, whatever it's down to now.